How do so few people produce so many dirty dishes? It's like Groundhog Day, every day. And of course, that extra 5 inches from counter to dishwasher is just way too much to ask. Oh, forget. You should need a license before you can buy one of these things. And a 12-week course on how to load the thing. No, the sharp knives go down. How many times do I have to? I'm going to impale myself. It's not even my turn to load the thing. Oh boy. Note to self, buy dishwashing pods. Another day, another dish load. Everything in our world hinges on time. Time to make money, time to spend it, time to do this or that, and no time to even think about doing this. It's the biggest commodity of our modern era, and most of us spend a lot of it at home. Everywhere we look, with every minute that goes by, demands and needs and projects pile up. And all of those to-do lists keep getting longer.
Et donc ça produit quelque chose de tension permanente, d'insatisfaction permanente aussi, et sentiment qu'on ne peut plus jamais se poser. Et on court encore plus pour essayer de gagner le temps où on pourrait enfin se reposer. Et puis cette course s'arrête jamais.
And so, we find new ways to cheat time. And of course, new ways around the chores we hate doing. We've got this to clean up after us, this to water the garden, and this to mow it. This thing gets rid of the scum and gunk in your fish tank, and this does the dishes, without argument, every time.
Washing dishes always ends up on the top 3 of most hated household chores, sometimes above, sometimes just below cleaning the bathroom, so it's certainly something that most people hate doing.
Top 3 finish in the most hated category? That's pretty good, if you like bad company. So it's hardly surprising that over the decades, they slid under countertops across North America and Europe and squeezed themselves into new shapes and sizes to fit in some of the world's tiniest kitchens, promising to revolutionize our domestic lives.
L'arrivée des techniques et de la révolution industrielle a permis un développement considérable de cette simplification et de ce gain de temps par la même occasion. Et puis, aujourd'hui, les technologies numériques ont permis encore un autre gain de temps.
Yep. Automatic dishwashers do something for us while we do other things. They're practically clones.
It doesn't have arms and legs. It doesn't look like a C-3PO. It doesn't look like a robot from science fiction. But the dishwasher is a robot. It's absolutely amazing. It's clean, it's efficient, it uses less energy and less water than washing the dishes by hand.
I've always said that.
And it saves an amazing amount of time. So I am all for surrendering to this particular robot overlord.
Talk to me once it's figured out how to load and unload itself. One study tells us that Americans are fighting, on average, about 4 times a month about that. And I doubt things are different in the rest of the world. But the dishwasher is a good thing, right?
I think that the answer to that question is going to determine whether or not that the dishwasher actually helped people's time famine or hurt it in the long run.
Well, surprise, surprise. Once again, yes, once again, it comes down to a question of time. Humans have been washing dishes since, well, not that long really in the grand scheme of things. For hundreds of thousands of years, washing up after a meal was as easy as licking our fingers. But over time, the idea of the plate evolved from our hands and leaves, shells, and gourds to shared wooden platters and then actual plates and bowls. And washing them was pretty sketchy at best.
In ancient times with Romans or Athens, they would often use something like ashes and in combination with the fat that was still left, it really acted as a soap. In the Middle Ages, if you were just a commoner, of course, you probably owned one spoon, one fork, and a wooden bowl. So very often you didn't even need water. You would just, lick it clean, your spoon, or just wipe it off your clothes.
And really, not much changed for hundreds of years. But by the 1800s, metropolitan cities were exploding with the industrial age, bringing in huge populations along with it. Take London, one of the fastest growing cities at the time. Between 1800 and 1840, its population doubled to reach 2 million. That's like at least 6 million dishes a day, not to mention all the teacups.
If you think about the process of trying to wash dishes, historically that would have been enormously troublesome because you have to carry the water into your house. Then you have to find some way of heating the water up. Then you've got this dirty water, you've got to get it out of your house again. I mean, the sheer labour involved simply in carrying the water in and out of your house is enormous.
Not only was this an hours-a-day chore, but washing dishes in early 19th century London, or anywhere else around the world, was also a potentially deadly endeavor. Without modern civic infrastructure, most people used rivers as dumping grounds for their garbage, dirty water, and human waste. Then off they'd go to the communal pump for fresh water supplies that drew from, those same rivers.
What happened, though, towards the end of the 19th and early 20th century is that there was a realization that clean water really related to health. And a lot of the big cities were really dealing with typhoid fever or even cholera. So there was very quickly an understanding of local governments that you needed not only a sanitation system, a sewage system, but also a freshwater system.
We were on our way to modern sewage, sanitation, and power systems. And the time was ripe for the right inventors to come along and harness their time-saving potential. Like this table furniture cleaning machine. Patented in 1850, it promised to throw water on the crockery with force, and thus acting upon and cleansing each and every article. A grand statement indeed by inventor Joel Houghton. But his contraption failed. Meanwhile, dishes kept piling up, and women were left holding the dirty, wet rag. So it makes sense that it took a woman to change things. Except Josephine Cochran had likely never washed a dish in her life.
What she was looking for was a machine that was good enough to clean her porcelain without breaking it. So this had nothing to do with the time saving. So the story goes, a lot of her servants would actually break the porcelain when washing. She got so upset about it that she started washing herself. Of course, that wasn't something that she particularly enjoyed. And so there is this famous quotation. We can't really prove that she made the statement, but she said, if no one else is going to invent a dishwasher, I have to do it myself.
And she did.
There are certain inventions that get invented to solve a problem that the inventor has. In the classic saying, we invent things because we're lazy, the classic invention is when the inventor himself or herself has a problem, doesn't want to spend a lot of time solving it, and so creates some new device, some new technology that solves the problem and saves them effort.
Cochran's dishwasher was the sensation of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Thoughtfully measured wire-framed compartments that could wash and dry 200 pieces. A copper boiler to heat water. A hand crank that can also be powered via pulley. And voila! A sparkling clean rack of unchipped, intact, precious china. Except
it really didn't take off. Particularly not in private households. It was far too expensive. It was far too big. It was, I think the first boiler was about 2 by 2 meters. So no one really had room for this. And still, for the cost of this, you probably could pay a servant for 5 years.
Where it was immediately apparent that this machine could replace hours of hand-washing labor was where labor had a dollar value. Hotels, restaurants, and hospitals, Basically, places where profitability was the motivation. It would take another 70 or 80 years and the mass electrification of homes and then the birth of the American suburban dream before the household dishwasher really took off.
Towards the 60s and 70s, as more and more women enter the labor force, earn their own money, as American households become much wealthier, there's a lot more disposable income, the demands for dishwashers really rises.
Now, it's unlikely that the Europeans were having any fun over a sink full of greasy pots and pans either, but they were busy clearing up a bigger mess for a while.
In Europe, there's kind of a time lag for that of about 20 years. And that simply has to do with the fact that Europe is war-torn and ravaged, of course. And the 50s, even though it is an economic boom in West Germany and other countries, it still takes some time to catch up. But we see the same kind of development then kicking in ever since the 70s.
And pretty soon, dishwashers would become a familiar appliance in millions of kitchens around the world.
Les individus vont vouloir pouvoir se libérer des tâches qui ne les intéressent pas énormément ou qui sont dures, qui sont fatigantes, pour faire d'autres tâches plus agréables.
Well, yeah, no kidding. Today, for many of us, doing the dishes means loading the dishwasher. But then what? I don't know about you, but I have no idea of what goes on in there after I shut the door. What I do know is that when I open it again, those dirty piles have been transformed into gleaming, steaming stacks of saved time.
You've got the opportunity to have this miracle box in the corner of your kitchen, the dishwasher, which all it's using really is a little electricity, a little soap, and some warm water, and the dishwasher works miracles. I understand some people find doing the dishes to be soothing. Personally, give me laundry anytime. I don't like doing dishes, and I'm very grateful for my dishwasher.
At any given moment, someone somewhere is pushing the start button and walking away. And in that same moment, gallons of water are being used here. Hundreds of dishwashers are coming off an assembly line somewhere else, and more are being purchased, installed, repaired. There are hundreds of makes and models on the market, a market which is expected to exceed $10 billion, by the way, in the next few years. Think about it. All the plates and bowls and knives and forks and mugs and glasses and pans and pots we use every day. We're not rinsing out that coffee mug. We're getting a clean one. Even if you're getting takeout, you still need tableware. Heck, most of us put a microwave-safe dish onto a clean plate. And it doesn't matter if we don't spill a drop. As soon as we're done, the plate goes straight into the rack and we go straight off to the next thing. Because the dishwasher is also a quick way to hide all that mess. And that feels like it's generating time too, doesn't it?
Si on peut gagner du temps sur cette tâche, c'est-à-dire passer moins de temps à la faire, pour faire d'autres choses qui nous semblent plus épanouissantes, pourquoi pas?
Why not indeed? But here's a curious thing about the dishwasher. Compared to other domestic technologies that promise to cut down on the daily grind of household chores, the dishwasher was kinda slow to get off the ground.
We have numbers for the United States where in 1940, 44% of households had fridges and 40% had washing machines, but almost zero had dishwashers. And even in 1970, when pretty much every household had a fridge and more than 90% had washing machines, it was still only 27% who had dishwashers.
And some might say the dishwasher still hasn't really reached its full potential. While 90% of households in the UK own a vacuum cleaner, only 44% have a dishwasher. In Mexico, 80% of homes are outfitted with a microwave, but just 10% have dishwashers. In Russia, nearly every home has a fridge and a vacuum, but only a quarter boasts, you got it, a dishwasher. And it's the same sort of pattern of appliance ownership in France and the United States and Japan and Argentina. Now, where they have always had success is in the commercial sector, where the industrial dishwasher has been propping up the global restaurant industry, international hotel chains, bars, and, well, all of those places for over 130 years. The general rule of thumb is that for every 100 meals served, about 35 racks of dirty dishes are generated. And depending on where you are in the world, that can be a lot. Cities like Beijing, Tokyo, Singapore, and Bangkok are so densely populated with affordable restaurants, the culture of eating out is so strong that people just don't have enough dishes at home to bother. I mean, in Singapore alone, more than half of the population dines out on a weekly basis. Now, this is interesting. Over the years, some pretty strange marker theories have been used to measure a country's economic growth. Along with cocaine use, pet ownership, unclaimed corpses, men's underwear, and garbage production, appliance purchases have been used as indicators of a country's growing or dwindling economy.
We do see a much slower market penetration, but it is happening. Currently, sales are really up in China, in Japan, Taiwan. The reason for it being that this is also somehow a symbol of having arrived at middle class.
So if dishwasher sales are on the rise, how many more washers and bolts and springs and screws are needed to feed the demand? How many more LED display panels, valves, motors, and heating elements? And then, of course, how many more cardboard boxes, styrofoam beans, and bubble wrap sheets for transport? How many more delivery drivers, trucks, GPS units, extended warranty salespeople? It also means a rise in the roughly $20 billion a year dishwashing detergent industry. $20 billion a year? On pods and tabs and powders and packs? Not to mention water softeners and rinse aids and cleansers? And all the time they invest in R&D and advertising? And all the 30-second ads you're forced to watch? And replacement parts and plumbers and repairmen. Don't get me started on that. Waiting for them can eat up as much time as you've ever saved. And while you wait, you have to wash the dishes by hand, don't you? The dishwasher stands in for us, does the dirty work, and tells us a whole lot about who we are and where we're at. But at the end of the day, what we all want to know is whether they're saving us any time, or at least giving us the impression that they do.
Pour moi, le temps, c'est une notion multiple, multidimensionnelle. Le temps de la vie, le temps chronologique, le temps dans l'hyperespace, le temps de l'économie, des logiques économiques, le temps de l'action pour faire quelque chose, etc. Et donc, le rapport au temps dans l'hypermodernité, c'est quelle réponse chacun de nous apporte par rapport à ces contradictions temporelles dans lesquelles il est.
So, to paraphrase, time is anything I want or need it to be, but then it's also anything you want it or need it to be, even if they're two wildly different things at the same time? I guess that's why nobody ever has time to help me out with these dirty dishes. The dishwasher took a while to get a foothold in the kitchen. But it's not like it was the first invention that was ahead of its time, or that we needed to warm up to. I mean, solar cells were being demonstrated back in 1839. The idea of contact lenses was being thrown around in the 1600s. And the Minoans were flushing their toilets as far back as 1800 BC. And today, let's face it, we wouldn't be without that machine that washes dinner plates and launders time, sending it into an alternate soapy universe. Nobody wants to do the dishes, no matter how calming and soothing that warm, bubbly water is on our hands.
With these technologies that allow us to minimize the time that we invest on tasks, like the dishwasher that allows us to not spend time washing dishes, which I personally do not enjoy, then the question is, where do I spend that time that's freed up?
Well, first, let's find out just how much time is being freed up. According to Energy Star, or an equivalently certified dishwasher depending on where you are, Using a dishwasher translates into about 230 hours over the course of a year, nearly 10 days. Multiply that by the millions of new dishwashers sold around the world each year, and add that on top of the ones we're already using, and you've got, well, I don't know exactly, but it's a lot of time. It kind of proves the point. Thank you, Josephine Cochran, and all the other inventors. Where would we be without the marvels of modern technology? Elevators and emails, ready-made meals, self-checkouts and GPS, power tools, streaming sites, the barcode, microwaves, washing machines.
Actually, when you look at the data, the washing machine is a little overrated.
It is?
And the reason is very simple. When laundry was incredibly difficult and time-consuming, we just used to wash our clothes a lot less often. And for sure, it's more pleasant to just be able to load and unload a washing machine. But it's not necessarily a real time saver if you so dramatically expand the amount of laundry that you do.
Right. Like too many cars means the highway isn't saving us time anymore. The double-edged sword of the smartphone, saving us time shopping and banking online, but sending us down the rabbit hole of cat videos and memes. Have you checked your screen time lately? So what's the hidden time-related downside to the dishwasher?
There's a big difference with the dishwasher. You have to wash your plates after a meal. You can't realistically reuse them again and again. You could say we're only going to wash our clothes once a month, but you can't say we're only going to eat once a month. And that means that in terms of saving time, the dishwasher is potentially a far more important invention than the washing machine.
Okay, right on. The case for the dishwasher is solid. But let's be real for a minute. If we're going to talk time, and of course we are, we need to look at all the time that goes into the dishwasher. Let's start with the hours spent shopping for one, comparing prices, features, sizes, the reviews, which is normal. It happens with everything we buy. Then there are all the hours you have to work to come up with the $700 or so to pay for it. The time that you spend waiting for the delivery, they told you sometime between 8 a.m. and noon next Tuesday, right? Yeah, good luck with that. And then, well, the rest of its life, or yours, troubleshooting. 30% of all new dishwashers will break or stop cleaning properly within the first 5 years. And so after you've located the manual, taken the racks out, got the arm off, pulled out that disgusting clump of whatever that is, and it's still not working, well, then you're waiting around for the repair company to come out for $150, only to tell you that you shouldn't put olive pits in there. Thanks. Got it. Oh, and you need a new water pump. $300.
Of course, we shouldn't pretend that because we don't have to wash the dishes, the dishwasher saves all the time that we would give over to dishwashing. I mean, you still have to load it, you have to unload it, you have to get into a near state of divorce with your spouse over the right way to load it. Like many things in life, there is a cost, there's a financial cost, and there's a time cost.
And not just your time. How many hours did engineers put into research and development on that model? Let's take it back even further. How about the time it took to extract the petroleum and metals that make the modern dishwasher possible? How long does it take to manufacture the hundreds of separate parts it takes to make one? In fact, let me get philosophical here for a moment, will you? We'll go back to the actual dishwasher in a sec. I'm just throwing something out there. Are dishwasher-owning individuals saving time or simply buying time in an exchange that relies on hundreds of other people's time? And does your time have more value than the time of those who made that dishwasher? Do they have a dishwasher? And the time of those packing it and shipping and delivering it? Yeah, I know, you're probably saying, what's this got to do with me and my dirty dishes? Well, time doesn't belong to just you. It doesn't belong to any one person. It can't be neatly parceled off and shared out. It can't be controlled or captured, stopped or stored. Heck, it can't even be defined. Even though, get this, a few years back, according to the Oxford Dictionary, time was the most frequently used noun in the English language.
Dès que vous parlez de temps, il faut savoir que c'est un terme qui est très polysémique. Il y a plusieurs définitions du temps. Il n'y a pas une forme de temps, mais il y a plusieurs formes de temps. Et à chaque forme de temps, ça va impliquer des mécanismes, des processus qui sont complètement différents. On utilise un seul vocable, le temps, mais en fait, on parle de choses différentes.
And despite some 25,000 years of investigation into the nature of time, there are still so many conflicting issues. Does time exist when nothing is changing? Is time simply a mathematical construct? Is time an individual thing or a relationship among things? What we can all pretty much agree on, though, is that time is at the core of how we structure our existence and how we experience that existence. It's us, you and I and everyone else, that give it a past, present, and future. And it's us that start measuring it. And once we start to measure something that we value, we want more of it, right? But unlike money or poker chips or these shoes, we can't get more of it. All we can do is pack more into it. And of course, that's where technologies like the dishwasher come in. See? Told you I'd get back to it.
All of these things are now robotized, and we think, oh, that's great, I can save time. I can really call it a day because actually I'm done with the to-do list, right? And we are never done with the to-do list.
Because we're constantly packing more and more stuff into it.
What all the data say, that you feel that the to-do list is longer than the amount of time you have at your hands, right? If you try to work off the to-do list in a proper rhythm, you would need 2 days to do the list of 1 day, right? So that means you're short on time. Now we have 3 possibilities to do something about the problem. One is acting faster, like speed dating and fast food and power naps. The second way we try to do it is to have no intervals or pauses, right? So you try to take the last train you can possibly take to get to the event or work or so, and the first train that brings you away. So no pauses, no breaks, no intervals. The third thing is multitasking, right? Trying to do more things at the same time, because that's one strategy to increase the number of episodes of action per day, let's say. It's a kind of, what most people experience is really like an explosion of the to-do list, right?
It's not as if the dishwasher does all the dishes either. There are those hand-painted gold leaf-edged plates you inherited from your grandmother. And the roasting pan thick with grease from that turkey dinner, and what feels like 1,000 cups and bowls and glasses and plates that magically appear in the sink throughout the day. Seriously though, where do they all come from? And is there anything more perplexingly redundant than standing right next to an operating dishwasher, elbow deep in grimy water?
I'm sometimes enjoying doing dishes. I find it very therapeutic.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't.
For me, that's a break from work. Sort of, just standing there and doing a bit of cleaning is actually not too bad.
Well, that is a very valid point, though. But then, wouldn't we just be pushing off the work that we'll have to do in exchange for less sleep? Yeah, no thanks. But it might explain why, of all the inventions and technologies that are so easily and readily available to us, the dishwasher is still so underused. Perhaps we just don't need it, or want it. Imagine that. No, for real. Let's imagine for a moment that nobody had dishwashers. Seems harsh, I know. But I said imagine. Sure, it would probably mean a nightly fight about whose turn it is to wash and whose to dry. But let's be honest, we're already having that argument over loading and unloading. Among the 40% of Americans who fight over the dishwasher, 61% are arguing about pre-rinsing, and 41% clash about whether to separate the dishes or just cram in as much as possible. Maybe getting rid of the dishwasher would make for more harmonious relationships everywhere.
It's funny to think about a world without a dishwasher because it's easy to imagine. We've all been in situations where our dishwasher breaks down and we have to do things by hand, and it's a total pain. It's interesting. It's actually easy to imagine what life would be like. It would just be exactly the same as today, only more annoying. We'd have less free time and our hands would be all wrinkled. So the dishwasher's a funny invention. It doesn't prop up some huge system of other inventions. It's not like loads of things depend on it. It just happens to be incredibly useful.
And seriously, if we are at the point where we're dependent on a machine to do a job that we're entirely capable of doing ourselves, what does that say about us? Because let's not forget that a world without is actually a lot of the world. First, you've got to have the space for it. You also need a water supply line and a drain line, and of course, power. And well, the harsh reality is this. About 1.6 billion people live in inadequate shelter around the world. 6% of the world population still doesn't have access to drinking sources or piped household water. More than 2 billion people still lack sanitation. And about 15% of the world's population, an estimated 1.2 billion people, live without electricity. Sometimes we all just need a little perspective. Suddenly, standing at the sink listening to your latest podcast or sharing your day with a loved one doesn't sound so bad, right?
What is the promise of modernity? It's the promise that you can increase, I call it the AAA horizon, the horizon of availability, attainability, accessibility. I think when you look at it through a sociological glasses or perspective, the whole institutional fabric of society depends on the necessity to increase speed almost incessantly. We could produce more, we can consume more, we can distribute more. It's an increase in the rates of social change, and it's an increase in the speed of life.
And ain't that the truth? Go have a look in your kitchen cupboards right now. A standard 4-place dinnerware set contains 12 pieces. 4 dinner plates, 4 salad or side plates, and 4 bowls. How many have you got? Twice that? Be honest. Maybe 3 times? How many mugs and cups? How many water glasses, wine glasses, champagne flutes? How many pots and pans, baking trays, and measuring cups? How many pieces of cutlery, not to mention the ladles and peelers, wooden spoons and strainers? Don't tell me you'd have all that stuff if you couldn't dirty it and then hide it away for a while. If you couldn't just walk away from the chore at hand and do something else, which, let's face it, you probably don't want to do either.
I think that that's a common thing that we do, is that we shorten a task that has low in meaningfulness and low in happiness. We shorten the amount of time it takes. And then instead of using that free time that we now have in ways that'll increase our meaningfulness or happiness, we just shove another meaningless, low happiness task or chore or activity in there and end up right where we started. Except now we've done 2 things and we feel that we're busier than ever before.
Phew. When it comes to time and technology, the pros and cons are constantly tripping us up.
Moi, j'ai l'impression qu'il n'y a pas de réponse unique à cette question parce que quand vous êtes en forme, le fait d'être débordé, d'être sollicité, d'avoir 1000 choses à faire, vous donne un sentiment de preuve existentielle. Vous avez l'impression d'exister vraiment parce que vous êtes réclamé. Mais si, par exemple, vous êtes fatigué, alors cette trop grande sollicitation va créer en vous une forme de stress qui va vous écraser.
So, let me see if I've got this right. We have to be in perfect harmony all the time, under optimal conditions to be able to find the ideal balance on the scales of time? Isn't that kind of, well, I hate to say it, but impossible? Look, probably you and I don't need a dishwasher, but maybe spare a thought for the staff at the more than 700,000 recognized hotels and resorts around the world. How many dishes, plates, knives, forks, spoons, and bowls do you think the roughly 30 million cruise ship vacationers use each year? At the very least, that's 3 plates, 3 knives, and 3 forks, 3 spoons, and let's say, what, 5 glasses a day? That's 17 pieces per person a day. Times 30 million? Over 500 million pieces to wash. At sea? On a ship? No thank you. But the point is, the more dishes we can wash and sterilize, the more people can converge, eat together, live together, and create more modern, fast-paced megacities. Think I'm exaggerating? Well, think again.
If you think about in a hospital, a lot of the tools that doctors and nurses will need, they have to be not just clean, but they have to be completely bacteria and germ-free. So most of these companies that sell dishwasher, they have another entirely separate big market, and it's more than a niche market. So this is a segment of the dishwasher market that a lot of people, of course, don't think about.
We also don't think about all the restaurants, pubs, cafes, motels, retirement homes, high schools, prisons, government buildings, army bases. Really, almost everywhere that people eat and drink in large numbers and need to be efficient.
They are relying on these huge dishwashers to very rapidly process huge amounts of dirty plates, dirty cups, and to get them back out and in circulation again. And you think about the labor involved before those dishwashers were available.
Yep. The dishwasher, like so many other technologies, has taken the time out of labor-intensive drudgery. But it's also made us dependent on resources that are already in short supply. Even though, bit by bit, we're becoming greener, more environmentally conscious consumers.
When you ask people why they buy dishwashers, the first most important is time. About 60% say it's time. But then the next two are actually talking about the environmental impact. More and more people become aware of the way that their choices in their homes can make a massive difference.
So, dishwashers have allowed us to vaporize time with the push of a button. And the supersized industrial models are the behind-the-scenes heroes of restaurants, hospitals, and everywhere else large crowds eat around the globe. They're basically sleek and silent time machines. But let's talk about the energy behind the facade. Now, one of the factors preventing actual time-traveling machines, and allow me to pretend I understand for a minute, is power. Because in order to reach the necessary speed of light to get that going, that's 1,080,000,000 kilometers an hour, or 671 million miles per hour. We'd need an infinite amount of energy.
Les voyages dans le temps sont impossibles. Alors la science-fiction nous fait croire le contraire. Mais si vous lisez des livres de science-fiction, quelle que soit l'histoire qu'ils racontent, vous verrez qu'assez rapidement, vous êtes mis dans une drôle de situation qui fait cohabiter deux temps à la fois. Il y a d'une part le temps du voyageur temporel, son temps propre, et puis il y a le temps dans lequel il voyage. Si ces deux temps sont confondus, il n'y a pas de voyage dans le temps. Autrement dit, ce qu'on peut raconter, c'est non pas un voyage dans le temps, c'est le voyage d'un premier temps dans un second temps.
Yeah, well, there goes my hopes and dreams of going back in time and making better use of all those wasted weekends. But hey, we are capable of producing way more energy today than would have been imaginable back in the 1800s when the dishwasher was invented.
One of the biggest changes that industrialization brings about, that we have a change in the energy system. What this did was that you were now able to really live a more high energy life. But the other connected change is this idea of time. And so there's a whole discussion ever since the 19th century about how can I save time, which is one of the many reasons why engineers look into creating machines that would save that kind of time, including in the household.
The household energy sector represents roughly 30% of all global energy consumption. That's heating and water and cooking and lighting and washing and entertainment. Regular stuff. The total electricity used around the globe in an average year? About 23,398,000,000,000 kilowatt hours. I know, that's too big. It probably means nothing to you. Me either. But let's say your dishwasher per cycle uses around 1.5 kilowatts on average. If you run it every day, that's about 550 kilowatt hours a year. So how does that stack up against a stack of hand-washed dishes?
On average, we do know that it's almost impossible to be as energy efficient and water efficient as a dishwasher. It depends on what kind of electricity you're using. So for example, if you were in Europe and Poland, where a lot of electricity is generated by coal, then that becomes a different kind of scenario. But in general, you save about 30% energy and about half, 50% of water.
That's a huge saving in money and a whole lot of environmental points. But like many other things in our time-scarce world, it's still mostly all about time. Now, obviously, if you're going to be courteous to the environment, and you should, there are some do's and don'ts.
It's quite clear that neither just focusing on technology and efficiency, nor just focusing on people's behavior will really help us in the future. It has to be a combination of both. Just you having a dishwasher and using it doesn't necessarily guarantee the highest rate of efficiency. You need to follow certain advice that is given, and one of the most important advice is really to fill it up completely. Now, this is where the problem then starts. Do you have enough to fill it up completely? Are there things that you use on a daily basis that you don't want to put into a dishwasher because you may only run it the next day, but you already know that you would use it again? So there is, of course, a trade-off.
Oh, and stop babying your dishwashers, people. They can handle a few bits of food. All that pre-rinsing is wasting about 6,000 gallons of water per household per year. And that's contributing to the annual global waste of about 359 billion cubic meters of wastewater, equivalent to about 144 million Olympic-sized swimming pools of wasted, limited quantity water. Now think about all the underground and overground pipes that are needed to bring fresh water in and wastewater out. Residential, industrial, commercial, municipal, you name it. You've got your PVC, your ABS, your PEX, your copper, and the most common, steel. On the one hand, steel is essential to building the infrastructure required for a low-carbon economy, including electric cars, wind turbines, and yes, dishwashers. And as a bonus, it's recyclable. On the other hand, it is one of the world's leading industrial sources of greenhouse gases, producing nearly 2 tons of CO2 emissions for every ton of steel. Funny enough, even then, the dishwasher still wins out.
Studies looked at the water use, the CO2 emission, the production, they looked at the actual use, anything that goes in it in terms of detergent, the cost, and so on and so forth. The machine, in this case, wins.
So, we're good, right? The world keeps turning faster, or at least it feels like it, and changing in ways we can't begin to predict. But that doesn't stop us from trying to keep up, with the hope, yet again, of conquering time. With more upgrades, more inventions, more successes, and apparently more money-making for some. It's all a cycle, isn't it? And so, more than a century after the dishwasher hit homes around the world, researchers and designers are still at it, trying to come up with more time and energy-efficient ways to clean your dishes.
If we look at the numbers over the past 2 years, if that is continuing, it will be impossible for a human to actually use less water and energy than a dishwasher. As long as people continue to eat and continue to eat on dishes, they need to be cleaned. But the most energy efficient way to do so is definitely the dishwasher, and will be even more so in the future.
This is all good news, given that we've all become a little more concerned about hygiene and sanitation during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many parts of the world saw dishwasher sales rise during and after the lockdowns. It's almost impossible to hand wash dishes at the 149 degrees Fahrenheit the World Health Organization says can kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses. Hey, maybe I should throw my gym socks in there. So what's next? Well, how about cutting another 20% off the energy required to run your dishwasher and speeding up washing times? With rocks. Yep, rocks. How? Well, you know how when you open the door right after it's finished its cycle and you're engulfed in a cloud of steam and everything's too hot to handle? So you leave it all in there and basically use the dishwasher as a cupboard? Yeah, everyone does that too, right? The newest line of dishwashers uses an ancient natural mineral called zeolite to collect moisture and transform it into heat that is then circulated throughout the machine to dry its contents. Reaching an all-natural temperature of up to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, compared to a standard machines of about 150, the zeolite technology is specifically designed to dry faster, lower energy consumption, and save money. Dishwashers won't just get hotter and faster, they're going to get smarter.
What we will see, I think, is a lot more AI and smart grids, the combination of smart dishwashers with smart electricity grids.
And so, what is a smart grid, you might ask? Well, most electric grids today only allow for one-way interaction. They deliver electricity to homes and businesses and bill you once a month. The smart grid introduces a two-way interaction, allowing customers to manage their usage that results in savings and a more efficient transmission of power. And there's more. Imagine harnessing the sun's power on your rooftop to run your house, and then selling any excess energy back to the utility company, reducing the environmental impact of making all that electricity.
Smart and intelligent dishwashers that, for example, would only start washing dishes when there is a good time to do so. So it's connected with a smart electricity grid that would send out the signal that now is a good time because not a lot of electricity is used.
The thing is, we're all going to need to get smarter about how we use these technologies and the resources that power them. By 2050, the population is expected to hit 10 billion, and close to 70% of us will be living in cities. It's going to be tight, and demand for energy would increase by about 50%, in part because of new technologies. By then, for example, the switch over to electric cars will be complete, and if every vehicle on the road today is replaced, that means approximately 1 billion electric ones will need charging. Smart and even smarter phone use is expected to rise to over 7 billion users in just a few years. They'll all need charging too, and access to 5G and Wi-Fi, and they'll likely be controlling our washing machines and speakers, toasters and microwaves, and yes, of course, our dishwashers, which I guess might then be housed in a fully integrated kitchen where humans will no longer be needed to cook or clean or keep stock of the pantry.
C'est ça les paradoxes de cette société, de ce progrès technique et de cette accélération. C'est que du coup, on est pris dans des dilemmes qui ne nous facilitent pas la vie. C'est pour ça que le débat par rapport à la planète est tellement important, parce qu'il y a quelque chose d'absolument incontournable sur la préservation de la planète.
Humanity's quest to save time has certainly given rise to some remarkable technologies. Marvels of inventions that were once the stuff of sci-fi novels or futuristic films. They connect us instantly, transport us around the world in hours, conveniently feed us and sustain us, offer up entertainment on demand, clean up after us cheaply and efficiently, offer us the world in a basket and instant gratification. But perhaps it's time to shift our priorities, rethink our individualistic desires, stop and think about the repercussions.
It is conceivable that maybe we are already in the middle of the next kind of transition, that over the next decades, people actually start thinking completely differently about the importance of time, and also whether the most important thing that technology should do is save time.
Sure. It's also conceivable that I wash these dishes by hand, but I'm not going to. And it's conceivable that I'll make my own coffee every day instead of grabbing one to go. But that's not likely either. For the time being at least, time is everything. And there's no end to the technologies that are constantly invented with the hope of stretching and conquering it. Oh man, I gotta go set the table. Okay, so how many are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and a maybe. Yeah, I gotta love those maybes. Yeah, what do they call it nowadays? What, FOMO? Fear of missing out? I still call it rude. Okay, wine, cheese plate. Okay. Plates. What the? Oh, man. Is this thing broken? Again? Oh, jeez, I swore I pressed the start button. Didn't I?